Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to our video, and today I will be doing a review of the Cheerson CX-33. As you can see here, this is a pretty cool looking aircraft, and now this is technically a hexacopter in the Y6 formation because it has 6 motors and 6 props, as you can see here. On each arm it has one upwards and one downwards, and these spin counter-rotating to each other, so they both do indeed give thrust, and is a Y6 because it's a tricopter formation, with one up and down, so hence the name Y6. You have some landing legs here. They're pretty flimsy and they're not too good overall, and they're pretty bouncy, but they do get the job done, I guess. And you can remove them, but then you'd be landing on the props. Here we have our charging cable. Now it's interesting to see a battery of this size and type use a USB charging cable, but it's just a USB outlet. It's just rather big. It says 8.4 volts, so that means it's charging to 8.4. It's really 7.4, so 2S. 500 milliamp hour charger, ending in the balance plug 2S. So you charge the balance port. You've got a bag of prop guards here, 6 of them, one for each motor, up and down, as well as screws. And I actually never tried these out, just because I feel like that would have been too much work to put them on. And honestly, it doesn't have that much power, so I think it would have hindered it too much. And if you're flying outside, I mean, you don't really need prop guards much because it's too big and too loud to fly indoors, if you ask me. You have a little manual here, not too helpful, but as usual, the diagram of the transmitter is. So that's really all you need to look at. And this is your transmitter itself, pretty funky looking, same design as the Cheerson CX-31, the little UFO spaceship, if you've seen that one. Not too bad transmo overall, at least it doesn't have a fake stubby antenna. Sticks are okay. They are decent length for a pincher and a thumb flyer. But as you can see, the throttle is self-centering, so it does have a barometer. However, unlike some of the other ones where the barometer doesn't work well and that really ruins the performance of the quad or multicopter, this barometer works rock solid. For how cheap this is, that barometer works really well. It still does hinder performance just because barometers are, no matter how well or bad they work, they're going to. But it's still, at least the barometer works and it holds its height very well if you stop it. Up here, frequency, that button's only if you have the FPV version. And this button over here is only if you have the camera version, so none of those do anything for me. There's no shoulder buttons and the sticks do not click. So really there's no flips, no rates on this one, so it's fairly restrictive. You can't really do too much with it. Over here you have an up and down that is auto takeoff and auto landing. And just like the barometer, those features actually work very well. You hit auto takeoff, it'll start up the motors all by itself. That's the only way you can take off. And it'll come up about, maybe 4 feet off the ground and then hover. And if there's wind or something, it'll start to blow away, but it'll hold that height until you give input. So if you let go, it'll hold its height and you go up, it'll go up and down, kind of, it makes sense, kind of like a Phantom that fly themselves, basically. You have some trim buttons up here, and then more trims down here. And I believe this says Mode 2 and Mode 1. I think if you hold that while you turn it on, it'll switch to Mode 1 and vice versa, but I have never done them. And as for the auto landing, that also works very well. I've taken it up about 50 feet, hit auto landing, and it'll start to come down pretty fast at first, but when it gets into about the last 10 feet, it'll start coming down about this slow, and like the last foot, it'll just nicely set down, run the motors for like maybe 10 more seconds, and then it'll shut down. So very nice overall, and I believe if you hold your throttle down while you're on the ground, you will, and it senses that it's not changing altitude, it will also shut the motors off. Your battery here is quite interesting. It is a 2-cell, 7.4 volt, 360 milliamp hour battery. Very thin and long, as you can see, so a 2-cell power but low capacity. It takes about an hour to charge off this charger, and this charger is quite good. It works quite well, I found, because it has a red light in it that comes on when there's power, and there's also a green light in there. And when you plug it in, it starts charging. The green light will start flashing. And when it's done charging, it'll go solid. So I quite like that. It's not just one light, solid or off. This one blinks, and it's a nicer charger than most of them. You also get a bag with 2 spare props and 2 screwdrivers. So you only get 2 props, so that's only a third a set, because there's 6 total. And you get 2 screwdrivers. Like, really, who wants 2 screwdrivers? But whatever. Like I said, the charging takes about an hour, and the battery flight time, I get about 7 minutes and 45 seconds. So even though it's a low capacity, relatively battery, it does work pretty well. And nice long flight times. And it's got decent power. Now here's the battery bay underneath. It's kind of got this slider thing here you push open. And there's a battery bay. And this battery bay is awful. It is very tight. You have to take the balance plug and shove it in one of these holes. And then once you do get that, fix the camera here just a second. Okay, and once you do get that, then you have to try and, like, look at that. There's no room for the cables at all in there. And then there's a JST, or a micro LOSI plug in there. You have to plug this in and then shove them down. Try and get this door shut. It's just a really bad battery bay. And they have plenty of room all around here. I don't know why they didn't make it larger. But, you know, so definitely can't use other batteries. Let's see, the props. They are fairly balanced. I mean, a couple of them do produce quite a bit of vibration, so the camera will have jello in it if you don't balance your props. And they look pretty interesting. They kind of have an upward tilt to them. Let's see, the gears are pretty loud. As I've used them, they've gotten broken in, but it's still pretty loud overall, obviously. 6-geared motors. So let me plug the battery in here. Okay, let me get it. There we go. Now there is an on-off switch over here. So let me click that, and there we go. I didn't have, whoops, guess I don't have the battery plugged in. There we go. So we have our lights. We have 2 blues up front, and as you can see, they are in these little clear caps, so you can see them from almost all angles. Very nice lights, and they're pretty bright. Then in the back here you have a double red blinking light, and that's blinking because it says the barometer isn't set yet. Overall, pretty nice lights. Good night flyer. Get the plug back out. So overall, it's a pretty nice quad. I bought mine from Banggood, but they sell them everywhere. The camera looks pretty good, and it seems like a nice quad overall, or not quad, a hex. But like I said, there's no rates, there's no flips, and it has a barometer, so it's not all that fun to fly. It's rather slow. The rates aren't that good, so if you're a sport flyer, I wouldn't really get it. But if you want something that looks awesome and it holds its height very well without you having to do too much, this could be a good one for you. So, you know, it's really up to you. I do like it, but not enough to buy it again. So there we go. That was my review of the Cheerson CX-33. So now let's take it outside for a flight. Okay, here we are for the flight review portion of my review of the Cheerson CX-33. So let me just switch the power on. Start the remote. There we go. So now I'm going to wait for the lights in the back to go solid, which they just did. So I'm going to hit auto takeoff here. I'm not going to touch either stick. I'm just going to hit the button and watch the quad, or the hex here. So that is totally on its own. You can see there. Drifted just a little bit because of the wind, but the altitude, which is the barometer is doing, was holding very well. So I'll keep it in pitch and we'll see how close it can stay in height. Now the wind's picking up just a bit right now. You can see in terms of height, it stayed pretty darn good. And there are no rates and no flips on this one, so it is fairly limiting. But I can still fly it around pretty aggressively. Not nearly as much as some other quads or hexes, but this hex does pretty well. It's more of a camera bird. The yaw, let me show you the yaw here. The yaw isn't all that fast, and the pitch isn't that great either. But the camera that comes on it, I didn't get that version, but from the footage I've seen, that camera actually performs quite well. If you can get rid of the jello, it's decent quality for a cheap camera. You can see it looks really cool. That's definitely one of the biggest features. with the counter-rotating props, it just looks super cool, especially when you're overhead, because you can, even in my human vision, you can see lines forming in the props. I'm sure you can see it on camera. It just looks really cool. And it's definitely a unique design for a toy grade multi-copter. I think that was good enough. I mean, there's not really anything to show besides the barometer features, so let me take it up higher. And I'm gonna hit, there I hit the button, so now it's dropping down all by itself. And the landing, there we go, that was all by itself. All I did was, and you can reposition it in pitch, and as it gets LVC, it will auto land by itself. So let's take off again, hitting the button. Let's do it. Auto land one more time, just because these features work so well on this one. So I'm going to hit the button there. You see, all I'm doing is maneuvering it in pitch. You can see it comes down very softly, and then it just shuts off after a few seconds. So there we go, that was my review of the Cheerson CX-33. Pretty sweet looking hexacopter in the Y6 formation. So it's a tricopter but up and down facing motors. You know, not too bad, but the price, I think it's fit, but I bought mine on Banggood. I got it for like 50 to 60 bucks. You know, it's pretty good hex, but it's kind of limited, no flips, no rates. It's pretty slow, and there is a barometer, so it does kind of fight you. But overall, it's pretty cool, and it definitely looks awesome in the collection, so I kind of half recommend it. I mean, if it's for you, it is, but if it's not, you know what, if you want it or not. So that was my review. Please subscribe if you weren't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.